You don't even know why they're on your mind. Yesterday you weren't thinking about them. You didn't talk. There was no message, no memory, nothing. But today they're stuck in your heart, in your du'a, in your dreams. And the hardest part? You don't even know why. Is it love? Desire? Regret? Or something deeper? A sign from Allah? It's confusing, isn't it? You open your phone. Their name shows up. A random reel. A message from months ago. A shared memory. You scroll past it, but the feeling lingers. And suddenly you wonder, did Allah put them back in my thoughts for a reason? Is this guidance, or is this a test? Should I reach out, or finally let go? No one really talks about this part. When someone keeps showing up, not in person, but in your mind, in your heart, in your soul. It's not physical, it's spiritual, emotional, unexplainable, and you can't control it. It feels like they're walking with you silently, just waiting for you to make a decision. And that's where most people get it wrong. We either obsess and chase a feeling we don't understand, or we ignore what could have been an answer to a prayer we forgot we made. But here's a truth people rarely say out loud. Just because you can't stop thinking about them doesn't mean it's love. And just because it hurts to think of them doesn't mean it's right. Sometimes it's something far deeper. Sometimes it's not about them at all. It's Allah trying to turn your attention inward, not toward them, but toward you. This isn't a video about romance. It's about clarity, because your heart can mislead you, but Allah never will. So if someone's been living in your mind, while being completely absent from your life, no texts, no calls, no connection, but still somehow, they appear in your dreams, in the whisper of their name during a random conversation, in your du'a, even when you're not trying to include them, and you're tired of trying to make sense of it, stay with me, because what you're about to realize might not be what you wanted to hear, but it might be exactly what your heart needed. Let's be honest, sometimes it's not even about them. It's about what they represented. Feeling seen, feeling wanted, feeling alive. Or maybe it's about the version of them you created in your mind, not who they really were. Ask yourself the hard question. If Allah truly wanted them in your life, why are they only present in your thoughts, but never in your reality? Because sometimes your thoughts aren't divine inspiration. They're just your loneliness, dressed up as hope. But sometimes, yes, sometimes it is from Allah. Because you once made a du'a in silence, from a place of longing, and now it's returning, not as a relationship, but as refinement. Allah may be holding up a mirror, showing you the parts of yourself that still need healing. The Prophet Muhammad said, "The heart of the son of Adam turns more often than a pot boiling over a fire." Your thoughts aren't always signs. Sometimes they're just storms, passing clouds, not messages, not meanings. But if every time they cross your mind, your peace fades, your routines shatter, and your du'a becomes desperate, that's not love. That's a warning. Because what pulls you away from Allah was never sent by Him. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're just learning to tell the difference between what Allah planted in your heart and what your emotions are trying to force into it. And that kind of healing takes time. Because when love becomes a fantasy, it becomes a fitna. You're not even in love with them anymore. You're in love with the version of them your mind carefully created, the late-night talks that never happened, the comfort you imagined they'd bring, the way you hoped they'd draw you closer to Allah. But in reality, they never even asked how your iman was doing. That's the trap no one talks about. When love shifts from something real to something idealized, when you stop seeing who they truly are and start clinging to who you wanted them to be, or worse, who they never were at all. And here's the dangerous part. Fantasies don't ask for permission. They don't care about reality. They build futures in your head. Based on a glance, a kind word, a fleeting moment. Suddenly, you're emotionally attached to someone who may not even think of you anymore. That's how love turns into a test. Not a softening of the heart, but a hardening toward qadar. You begin to resent your du'as for not being answered the way you hoped. You start questioning Allah's wisdom. Why isn't this easy? Why didn't it work out? Why didn't He give me what I imagined? And what makes it worse? We feed the fantasy. We scroll, we stalk, we overanalyze. We replay conversations like they were sacred texts. We beg for signs, even when Allah already closed the door. And deep down, we're not seeking clarity. We're searching for a shortcut to make the fantasy real. The Prophet Muhammad said, "The eyes commit adultery, and the adultery of the eyes is a lustful look." Then what is fantasy, if not the adultery of the heart? When your heart attaches to someone, without nikah, without reality, without commitment, you don't just harm yourself, you disconnect from the only one who can actually write your love story. You can't expect peace from a story you're forcing into existence. And maybe that's why you're exhausted. Not because love is haram, but because the love you created in your mind has become a distraction from the one who created love itself. It's time to ask yourself the hard question. If this person is never written for you, can you still find peace with the author of your story? Here's another truth, and it's heavier than the rest. Sometimes it's not even them you miss, it's you, who you were with them. It's not always the person. Sometimes you miss the version of yourself that felt alive, hopeful. Say, you miss how powerful your du'a felt when you still believed they could be the answer. You miss how they made your struggles feel lighter, not because they solved them, but because your imagination made it easier to carry. You're not obsessed with their face, you're attached to the feeling of being seen, pursued, understood. So when the story ends, when they walk away, or things never even begin, you don't just grieve them, you grieve you. The version of you that believed that love was close. That's why your mind replays old memories, why your du'a becomes a habit, why one passing thought becomes a recurring storm. And soon, you're begging Allah for signs, while ignoring the signs inside. The mental fatigue, the emotional drain, the whisper that tells you you're no longer present in your own life, not even around those who genuinely care about you. And here's something raw. Sometimes they've already moved on. Sometimes they were never even yours to begin with, and what you're calling a sign is just your pain, echoing back as hope. Allah says in Surah Al-Baqarah, perhaps you dislike something, and it is good for you, and perhaps you love something, and it is bad for you, and Allah knows, while you know not. That verse doesn't break your heart when you're calm. It breaks it when you're clinging, when you're begging Allah to give you what your imagination built, even if He's protecting you from what your heart refuses to let go. You think they'll complete you, but Allah is already holding something better just behind the curtain, and you can't move forward until you understand this simple truth. You don't need closure from a person when it was Allah who closed that chapter. What if they weren't a sign, but a test? You keep replaying their name in your head, as if it means something. You start drawing lines between dots that were never connected. Maybe the way they looked at me meant something. Maybe that dream wasn't random. Maybe Allah is trying to show me this is the one. But what if it's not a sign? What if it's a trap? The nafs is subtle. It doesn't always drag you into sin through the obvious. Sometimes it dresses up desire to look divine. And that's when it gets dangerous. Because now, every distraction feels spiritual. Every attachment feels like destiny. And no one around you can challenge you. Because in your mind, this isn't just love. This is qadar. But pause. Ask yourself, if this was truly a sign from Allah, why is it pulling you away from Him? Why have your prayers become weaker? Why does your heart feel heavier? Why are you more obsessed, but less grounded? Sometimes, Allah tests you with a person, by allowing them to sit in your heart, in a space meant only for Him. And it feels spiritual, but it's not submission. It's attachment, rebranded as tawakkul. And here's the hardest part to admit. Not every beautiful feeling is from Allah. That's the part we don't like to face. Because if you admit that, you might also have to admit, you're not in love with a person. You're in love with a delusion. So ask yourself again, what if this isn't guidance? What if this is a test? To see whether you'll follow your feelings or your faith. When a thought won't leave you, sometimes it's a du'a being answered, but not in the way you expected. Remember that night you probably forgot? The one where your pillow was soaked in tears, and your voice barely made it past a whisper? When you said, Ya Allah, if they're meant for me, bring them close. But if they're not, take the thought away. But the thought never left. And now, months later, you wonder, is this obsession? Or is this the du'a coming full circle? Here's what most people don't realize. Not every answered du'a brings instant peace. Some bring discomfort first. Some come wrapped in confusion. Because you didn't just ask for them. You asked for truth. And truth doesn't always come wrapped in softness. Maybe these constant thoughts aren't here to confirm this is love. Maybe they're here to confront what still needs healing. Sometimes, Allah leaves a person in your heart, not to bring them into your life, but to bring something out of your soul, to reveal where the wounds are, to expose the places you've attached your worth, to remind you what you think you can't live without, and show you that you actually can. Maybe the reason they're still on your mind is because the part of you that made that du'a hasn't yet made peace with the version of you that asked it. So no, not every recurring thought is a sign to chase them. Sometimes it's a signal from Allah to return to yourself. You ask for a sign. But what if Allah already gave it? Maybe the silence was your sign. Maybe the distance was protection. Maybe the fact that your heart only finds peace when you're remembering Allah, not when you're fantasizing about them, is the answer. But instead of letting go, you held on tighter. Not to them exactly, but to the version of you that still wanted this to work. And here's the part we rarely say out loud. Sometimes we're not asking Allah for guidance. We're asking Him to approve the story we've already written. We don't want the truth. We just want the yes. But Allah knows best. Allah loves you too much to say yes to something that will destroy your peace later. That person you can't stop thinking about? Maybe they weren't the answer. Maybe they were a test, a mirror, a trigger for a du'a you didn't even realize you made. And if their presence is pulling you away from Allah, even silently, even slowly, then ask yourself, what are you really holding on to? Because no one sent by Allah will ever require you to weaken your connection to Him just to keep them. So if your heart is hurting right now, feel it, but don't run back. Don't shrink into old patterns and call it destiny. Let this be your turning point, not your relapse. And if you're still unsure, then make this du'a tonight before you sleep. Ya Allah, if this person is good for my deen, my heart and my akira, bring them closer in a way that brings me closer to you. And if they are not, then remove them gently and heal the part of me that still wanted them anyway. If these words cracked something open in you, leave this du'a in the comments, not just for yourself, but for someone else who might be stuck exactly where you are. Ya Allah, remove what's not written for me, because you never know. Your words might be the start of someone else's healing. And if you want more reminders like this, the kind that feel like heart surgery, not just lectures, hit like, share this with that one friend who needs it, and stay close. We're not done healing yet.